Hello students, today we are going to deal with the central idea or the central theme or the central argument of a passage. Central idea is one of the most important aspects of a reading comprehension passage, not only um, not only because it is used a lot, it's asked very often in examinations, but also because you understand central idea and you understand almost the whole of the passage. Because central idea is the center of discussion of the passage. Now, what exactly is the center of discussion of a passage? Center of discussion of a passage is the main points which a passage deals with. If you understand that in a brief summary of say 2 to 3 sentences, then you're able to understand the whole passage. Direct or indirect questions can be answered very easily if you understand the central idea of a given passage. Now there's a little confusion. Students generally come and ask what if central argument is different from central theme is different from central idea. The central argument, central theme or central idea of a passage is the same. So if you understand what's the central idea, it is nothing but the central argument. It is the terminology central argument is used is because sometimes the author is arguing about a certain point or is arguing against a certain point. So then the central idea is nothing but the central argument, which are the same. Also, there is a little confusion about primary purpose and central idea. Now, primary purpose is the reason because of which the passage is written, while the central idea is the center of discussion. For example, if an article talks about anti-terrorist measures to be taken by the Indian government, the primary purpose behind the passage is that India needs to take certain measures because of which can help in preventing terrorist activity. The primary purpose may be because India must have faced a terrorist attack recently and it wants to prevent this terrorist attack. On the other hand, the center of discussion of that passage, that is the central idea of that passage, would be that various measures which are required to be implemented so that such attack is prevented in the future. So I hope that you now understand what is the difference between a central idea and a primary purpose. Similarly, the similarity between central idea, central theme, and central argument of a given passage. To find the center of discussion, it is very important to read the passage very carefully and then note down the main points which according to you defines the whole passage. Obviously, it would be very easy for you to understand the passage if you note down the points in the sequence of their origin in the passage. However, initially you may write them down while reading the passage, but at later stages, when you continue your reading practices every day, these points have to be registered in your mind on a regular basis. So now we move on to the central idea chapter. Now, one of the most important things which most of the students want to know all the time is that why does CAT test us with these kind of questions? As I had already stated in previous lectures and I will continue to state, CAT will never, the common admission test will never ask you questions which can be directly picked up from the passage. Because if you can pick up a question directly from the passage, then you do not need to understand the passage. So if there's a date mentioned in the passage, the question will be never about a date. Obviously, sometimes in easier papers like SNAT and MAT and CMAT, there will be plenty of direct questions, but the common admission test will always ask you indirect questions. And central idea is one of the indirect questions because you need to understand the concept of the passage to answer the central idea question. Central idea also is the foundation for a lot of questions which may not be directly from the passage, like questions based on parallel reasoning, which we will deal with in the future chapters. So for that purpose, you need to know the central idea. Hence, the cat always tests us with these questions because the cat itself wants to know if if we have understood the passage and if we are able to understand such comprehensions on a regular basis. Now we'll do a simple exercise. Students, I would expect you to read this given passage and then there will be four given options out of which you have to choose the best option, the most appropriate option for the central idea, central theme or central argument of the passage. Students, you can pause the video and read the passage. I'm assuming that you've completed reading the passage. Um, Now, most of you must have read the passage and must have realized that the passage starts very optimistically, talking about how Indian industries have freed, how Indian industries have freed itself from a lot of bureaucratic procedures. But then takes a almost a U-turn by talking about how um, there are a lot of bureaucratic hurdles still left in India, which expect Indian businessmen to behave in a certain kind of behavior. Now, it is talks about privatization. It talks about reservation in the private sector. Then it talks about features like the gas dispute between the Ambani brothers and the common bureaucratic hurdles which Indian businessmen might face. Then it talks about how larger issues of big companies, issues which have a more national prominence, are generally reported by the news-hungry media. But the issues faced by the local entrepreneurs or industrialists at a smaller level are never faced, and they have to always agree to the bureaucratic and political whims and fancies at the local level. Otherwise, if they don't do that, they might face harm in the form of a lot of things which have been mentioned in the passage. So now what you need to do is you need to yourself dissect, that is, make at least two to three major points or four major points which you think can summarize the whole passage. Now once you have done that, you will look at the answer options. Now we have four answer options. Now students, you choose the best answer option according to you, which will summarize the passage, whether it is A, B, C, D in the order of their appearance in the slide, or whether you want to number it as 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I hope you have done the same. You have chosen your answer. Now we will first look at the dissection of the passage. Dissection, as I mentioned in the earlier lectures as well, dissection is basically summarizing the passage into two to three or three to four main points, depending on the length of the passage. Here we have dissected the passage into four main points, but before that we will look at the just the passage is given a little. The passage talks about Indian businesses being freed from lot of formalities, yet political fantasies continue to haunt Indian businessmen. Now, when we look at the dissection talks about the first point being industrial bureaucracy has subsided and Indian businessmen have been relieved, which is true as he mentions right at the beginning. As I said, he starts very optimistically. And the second point is about Indian businesses having to still face political fantasies. When he talks about the political fantasies, he talks about the reservation demand in the private sector, or the suspicious behavior of the oil ministry in the gas dispute between the two Ambani brothers. And then it talks about in the third point the larger issues being faced are always reported by the news and media. And the fourth point that local entrepreneurs have to accept fantasies and avoid all difficulties. So we have the 4 points of dissection. Now try to tally it with your dissection. If your summary or dissection of the points is the same as given in this slide, then you're on the right path. If in case if it is not the same, then you have to go back and read the passage again and then try to understand it from the point of view of this given dissection. Now we look at the answer options. There were four answer options given to you. The first one being a very interesting answer option, which included most of the points from the dissection. It talks about the Indian businesses facing political fantasies, and businesses at the local levels have to accommodate those political fantasies as because they have never got any reporting, or they have not got that much of attention as the bigger or larger issues abroad. So it includes almost all the points. So option one can be said to be an answer, but uh, we cannot move on to the next lecture or next passage until unless we do not find out what the other three options are in store for us. So when you look at option two, it talks about Indian businesses not being a profitable option. So if you look at that, that has never been mentioned in the passage anywhere. So we can easily ignore option two. Option 3 talks about Indian businesses showing politicians in a good light, which is absolutely redundant from the point of view of the passage. It is something which is being created out of the passage. So you can again, eliminate this answer option. So 2 and 3 are gone. Now look at option number 4. Option number 4 talks about a lot of things which are similar to option 1. And option 4 is also more or less the right answer. But the cat always asks us to test the most appropriate answer. So option 1 is the most appropriate option as it includes all the points of the dissection, while option 4 doesn't include all the points. Also, option 4 talks about media giving support to top level entrepreneurs only when they ask for it. It has never been mentioned in the passage anywhere. So, students, you realize this is how you need to find out the central idea of the passage. Initially, you might take time while finding out the central idea because you need to dissect and note down the points wherever you're doing your passage from. But over a period of time, as you continue your reading practice, as you continue solving similar questions like based on central idea, you will start dissecting those summary points in your mind, and you need to do that pretty quickly because every passage, every question needs to be answered at least in 1.5 minutes. Not at least at the most in 2 minutes and at least in 1.5 minutes. And this does not include the reading time of the passage. So here we complete the whole chapter on central idea, and I hope to see you soon for other lectures. Thank you very much.